Hi. Hello, everybody. How are you in this hour? We had a long day. Okay. I'm going to try something. I thought about trying it, and I think you need it because you're like almost dying right now in terms of your mind, exploded with a lot of ideas and a lot of things, but you can't actually hear anything that I'm saying because it's so late. So let's try something to wake everybody up. And I tried it already in other conferences. It worked really fine, really good actually. And I did it once in Stockholm with Swedish crowd. So you guys, I know you guys are quiet. I heard about it, but they were not. So, and it was in a .NET conference. Now we're in a Java conference, and you don't want to be like these .NET guys who are, So what we're going to do, I'm going to have my camera on. And I'm going to take a video of you guys. What you should do, you should just get up, and when I say, you start screaming and doing this and doing whatever that you want. But you need to do one thing. You need to be better than these .NET guys last year. Okay? You're with me? You're with me? Everybody. Okay, so let's try this out, and I want everybody to get up and start shouting when I tell you. And I want the other room, and if possible, all of Stockholm, to hear you, because you're so awesome. So, 1, 2, 3, go! That's okay, you're awesome. You're awesome. You can sit. You can sit. Thank you very much. I'll post it on Twitter afterwards. It was like, that's all we got. Anyway, okay. So I hope you have some energy. Let's take this and let's talk about JavaScript. And we need energy to talk about JavaScript. Let me introduce myself first. So my name is Shay Friedman. I am a founder of a company named CodeValue, where we do consulting, training, and everything that is software related. I've been leading the web division, so we've done a lot of projects in the web area, which is JavaScript, TypeScript, Angular, whatever, all these stuff. And I've been doing JavaScript since I was in school, doing that for a long time, like 15 years now. And what I want to talk about today is how JavaScript has changed and what you need to know when you do JavaScript. So just want to think about you guys. How many here use JavaScript? Yes, okay, all of you. How many beginners, like 2 years of development in JavaScript? Okay, 5 years? Cool, 10 years? Ooh, more than 10 years? Oh my God, okay. Cool. So, great. So I hope everybody will learn something today. Even the veterans. Just about JavaScript, because JavaScript, has a lot of gotchas, right? You don't know that it's going to hurt you until it does, right? And I want you to think about JavaScript in slightly a different way from what you've been thinking of JavaScript. For example, think about the relationships in your life. Not talking about relationship with your computer stuff, with people. Now, when you have a relationship with a person, you do not expect them to always be rational, right? They sometimes are irrational, and it's okay. Now, what I'm asking you to do is treat JavaScript as a person. JavaScript has its own feelings and has its own personality. And just try to have a relationship with JavaScript and not just use it as a software development thing, right? So, and you all say, right, I love JavaScript, I hate JavaScript. It's feelings, right? JavaScript has feelings as well. So treat it as a person, as something that doesn't always answer what you think it would, and you will understand JavaScript much better that way. So, let's start, right? So, what we're going to do, we're going to see a bunch of gotchas and some other stuff. So, we will see that during the talk. So, the first thing here that I want to talk about is the global scope. The global scope in JavaScript is something that also the founding father of JavaScript, Brendan Eich, and all his guys said that this was a bad decision, a bad design thing for JavaScript that they made back in the 90s. And we're kind of screwed with it until today, and for the next like 100 million years. However, there are just things that you need to know. And when you know them, you can just continue on with your life. So, first of all, when you do this, everybody at the back, you see this? If you don't see it, raise your hand. Okay, so let's do this. Raise your hand if you don't see it. Cool, okay. So, we have this, right? When you do that, right, var x equals 5, you have just declared a variable. Now, this variable, because it is not inside a scope, it's global. So it doesn't matter that you used var, because doing that and doing window.x would be the same thing, because you're not in a scope. And now you might have problems because this variable x might be declared in other places, whether it's other files, extensions of that running on your Chrome, on your browser, whatever that you use. So you should know that this is a problem. Now, let's say that this is acceptable. When you're in a function, right? Function A, whatever, and you're doing something like this, you're fine because this x is now inside the function scope and it's not in the global scope, right? However, JavaScript has this feature, I don't know, that allows you to just use variables just create variables without var. But sometimes people don't tell you that when you do this, you're actually using or creating a variable on the global scope. So now x will be changed once I run this A. X will be 6 because it uses the global scope. So first of all, regarding that, never ever declare a variable without var. var will take you a few steps towards reasonable scoping. Okay. Now there is another thing about JavaScript that kind of surprises people every time that I show this. Let's say we do this. If 1, which is true, by the way, var y equals 6, and I run it. Now, how many of you think that y would throw an exception if I do right enter now? How many of you think this would be undefined? Okay, how many of you think it would be 6? The rest are like, oh, I don't have energy for that. So of course it's 6. Like, what? Of course, this is JavaScript, gentlemen, and this is a thing about JavaScript, that it doesn't have block scope. It just doesn't have it. So whether you're in an if or a while or a for or whatever that has curly brackets, except from functions, you don't have scope. So whatever that you write var something inside that curly brackets, they're in your outer scope. They're not inside. So, and this might lead to vicious bugs. Vicious. Two things if you want to kind of not get into these places. First of all, every time that you start a new file, a JavaScript file, write this, use strict. Okay, this is the first thing, and this will not allow you to create variables without var. So this is one thing that will take you kind of far. The second thing, if you can use ECMAScript 6, I know not everybody can do that, but if you can, use let. So we have var x, right? So instead of this, let's do this second. You can see. Okay, so let's, if we did this, var, I don't know, xx equals 5, and let y equals 6, what would happen after that is that xx would be accessible outside these curly brackets, but yy wouldn't. Okay, let is what's called as a block scoped variable, right? So this finally in ECMAScript 6, just about like 20 years almost, maybe more, after JavaScript was invented, we finally get block scope. So use let. Use it, because this will prevent you from a lot of bugs. Okay. Yeah, okay. Whatever. Now, between every thing here, we will do WTF moment, because, you know, it's JavaScript. We have a lot of that. And this is what makes it fun. It's so much fun. Think about it. It's, like I said, do not expect JavaScript to be rational. Most of the time it is, so let's thank it for that. So math.max is a simple, very simple function, right? It gives you the maximum number out of the numbers that you pass it. However, there is this little cool thing that you can just call it without parameters. And what you would expect from that is that you will get the maximum number that JavaScript allows. Yes. And it gets even weirder, because this, which gives you this amazing thing. That's actually, sorry. Oh, almost. Look at that. Look at that beauty. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is poetry. Yeah, that's amazing. Now I'm really, JavaScript allows you to write poetry, right? So let's do that. There is this cool thing, is finite, right? So it will give you finite for numbers. That would be true, and for infinity, it of course will be false, which is expected. That's okay. But let's do this. Abilities, right? We have possibilities. So is finite possibilities, right? That would be false. So JavaScript, it inspires you because you have infinite possibilities, people. Infinite possibilities. That's crazy. And you know what's finite? Is finite. You know what's finite is? Being null. Being null is finite. You know? So yeah, JavaScript. It just inspires you every single moment when you write it. Amazing. The evil twins, I don't know if you know what they are, but that's the name. I didn't make this up, right? This is the name it was given. And I'm talking about equals equals. For some odd reason, when they created JavaScript, they figured out, okay, people do comparison, right? And this is expected, right? Equals equals 1. But they said, okay, well, let's just do this as well, right? This would be logical, I guess. And the idea here is that equals equals, which are also known as the evil twins, will try to do everything in order to make both sides be equal, which is kind of nice. Like, just it really tries for you. You never ask for it, but it does. Now, this is not good, right? Not good when you write code. When you're having fun, this is great, but otherwise, it's not very good because it also goes to these places where it's weird, right? So you don't want to use it. So please, the solution for that is just avoiding it. What do I mean? Use equals equals equals, which is the real equals equals, just in JavaScript. So every time that you do that, feel bad inside and add an equal. And this is what you really want, because this actually compares the type and the value, which is what software should do. If you find yourself thinking that equals equals is a good thing for what you're now writing, you're doing it wrong, even very wrong. Just take the day off and go somewhere else. So just stop doing that, and every time equals equals equals. Whenever I mentor students, and they have the tendency to write equals equals because they know other languages that are normal, and they have equals equals. And every time I need to say, okay, write another equal there. And you know when you made the transition, when you go write in Java or whatever that other languages that you write in, and you write equals equals equals, then you know you're fine. So, yeah. Okay, so let's continue that just with a WTF moment. So, yes. You can't make this stuff up, right? It's mind-bending, right? You look at it like, but you know, it gets even better. Let's do this. That's interesting, right? Okay, right? But so this would work, of course, right? But yes, no, it didn't. What? I tried that. It should have been true as well. Okay, I'll try it out later. Oh, I know. Wait, let's try it again. Wait. No. Oh, okay. Never mind. It somehow became logical. Everything works. I don't know. I'll figure it out later and remember what was the thing, and I'll post it on Twitter or something. Yeah, anyway, let's continue. So none. None is not a number, which makes a lot of sense because a lot of things in JavaScript are surprisingly not a number. Even, let's say, too many things. The thing about not a number is that it's not behaving as you would think. What do I mean? I hope you know this already, but this would be false. Now, if you don't know that, so many bugs. If you look at it from the JavaScript perspective, or from a different perspective, not JavaScript perspective, this actually makes sense. I know you think like, oh, it's so late and what he's talking about. Not a number is not a number. And how can it be compared to another not a number? It's not a number, it's something else. You just don't know what it is. It's just not a number. So they cannot be compared, of course. The way to actually know that something is not a number is use this function isNan, and this would actually say it's true, right? There's another thing here which is interesting. By the way, a lot of things are nones, right? For example, if you try to have something like this would be none. I don't know, if you do stuff that you shouldn't do, you will get not a number in return. But there are also very weird things. For example, let's create a new date, and you can pass a date, a string, so it will be parsed and become a real date. But if you pass something like this, which is obviously not a date, you will get something like that says invalid date, and you say, oh, wow, that's that's right. But that's a new thing. It's the only line in this entire presentation that makes sense. D is not a number. It's a date, of course. But the thing is, if you look at D, it's actually it's not a number. So if you want to know about a date that it wasn't parsed correctly, you should check if it's not a number. Yes, somehow that makes sense in some weird place. Let's continue with that. I have a question for you. What I want to have is something that would be, this would be true, but this would be false, right? This is what I want. Now, think for a second. If you want, you can take this, and if you're interviewing people for JavaScript jobs, ask them that. If they know it, hire them. On me. Let's do this. So var A equals 0. Var B also equals 0. Okay? So now A, of course, equals B. That would work. Okay. And also 1, if you divide 1 and A, it will be the same as this. Okay, by the way, you can divide by 0. That's another JavaScript thing. And let's see what happens. Because if you do this, you get infinity. Now, yes, that actually makes sense. Just remember what you learned in math in university. That actually makes some sense sometime. Now, the thing is, which is very interesting in JavaScript, is something like this. So B for just saying is 0. You can multiply it by -1. Now, of course, everything that you multiplied by 0 would be 0, right? So in JavaScript, yes, that's minus 0. That's like 0 just from the other side. And that now, of course, 1 and A is not 1 and B, because you know what 1 divided by B would be? Minus infinity, of course. So yeah, so this is it. And again, if you're doing math in JavaScript and you don't know this is how JavaScript reacts, you will end up killing yourself. So yeah, just know that. Okay. Loops. Loops are fun. There are so many loops in JavaScript, you can lose count, right? There is for, and there is while, and there is for in, and for off, and for each, and then you have the others, like jQuery and stuff like that, that has each and for each and whatever that they come up with. You have so many loops, and you never know what to choose from. So what I want to tell you here is what not to choose from. So I have this. This is JSPref. I have all the resources at the end. You probably don't see anything, so let's do this. Yeah, that's big enough. So it has this thing here. This is what it prepares. It has 10,000 values, okay, from 0 to 10,000, and function add just sums them all up. This is what it does, nothing fancy. Now, what not to do? These all are using this for each, for, and stuff like that. And this is the operation per second. Now, what not to do? For in. I see people do that. And please stop. This, as you can see, you get around 1,000 operation per second when you can get 10 times faster than that. 10 times. That's crazy. For example, if you write all your loops in your application with for in, you are 10 times less performant than otherwise. 10 times. That's crazy. So stop doing that. Do that just when you need some kind of reflection or stuff like that, because this is what it is for. Now, if you do want to write the best for, and you don't want to write while, I'm not into doing crazy stuff, just for performance. I think readability is more important. So I think this one is the best one. And it just, you need to have one thing that takes it to another different level, which is cache the length. Because otherwise, JavaScript in every iteration will recalculate the length of the array, which obviously haven't changed. So just do that. And by doing that, you're going from 10,000, from here, this, from 5,000 something to 10,000. It's almost twice you're gaining here, at least. So why not? It's pretty simple and readable and okay. So just do that, right? So this is loops. Just remember, even if you don't remember that, I don't care. Just remember not doing for in. It's just done, okay? Whenever that you do that, you need to start like shaking and like, no, I don't want to do that. Okay. Oh, that's a good one. Are you ready for it? When you do that in JavaScript, that's of course adding 2 strings, right? Which is okay. However, JavaScript also does this for you. What would happen? That's what I call exceed your client's expectations. You have two strings that have numbers. What you would do otherwise, you would go and parse them to integers and then do that. You get it for free. Why do that? That's awesome. Now, so yeah, that's great. Now, another cool thing here about JavaScript and numbers. There is this special number in JavaScript. It's a long number, and it has a very special thing about it. Let me show you. I'm adding 1 to it, right? It's the same one. Now, it doesn't matter how much I would add, it would still be the same one. Because nobody ever tells you that JavaScript has a limitation. This is the biggest number JavaScript can handle. Above it, it won't throw an exception. No. It will just think, okay, I'll just give it. He probably wants the biggest number I can handle. Let's give it to him. That cost me a day of work. I had to do something like that with big numbers, and you never expect that. But then you figure out that's the thing. So whenever that you need to work with really big numbers in JavaScript, so either you have one choice of going to another language that knows how to deal with big numbers, or use a library. There is a big integer library that handles big numbers in JavaScript. Okay, hot functions. Hot functions are hot, and not because they're hot and look nice, because they are for the compiler. The compiler sees your code and says, okay, this function, we call it a lot. So I'm going to take this function and compile it to native code. And then your code runs much, much faster. And the JavaScript engines today are really crazy. They're crazy at the amount of hours of engineering going to these engines is amazing. But eventually JavaScript runs our life today, more or less. And it's good that this is what's happening. So there are a few things that you need to know about hot functions and how JavaScript engines decide to not compile your code. And when they decide not to compile your code, that might dramatically impact your performance. So let me show you this, something that I did. So we have 3 functions here. The first one just adds 2 numbers. That's it. Second one does the same thing, just with try and catch. Okay, same thing with try and catch. And the third one is the same thing, okay, just returns, but with this nice little comment. Now, I have this thing here. This is just a warm-up, runs all of them. And then I'm counting the time for 5 million times or 50 million times of doing this first add, then the second one, then the third one. Okay? So let's run this and see the results. So the first one that was just returning is 114 milliseconds. Second one is almost twice in performance. And the third one is about, 40% more, or 30%, something like that. Let's run it again so you believe me. And do it again. So we get almost the same thing, almost entirely the same thing. So what's happening? The first one, let me go back here. The first one, which is this, got compiled, which is good. And you saw that we got better performance here. The second one didn't. It didn't get compiled, for one. And secondly, it also had the overhead of try and catch. Now, I'm not telling you not to write try and catch, but try and catch, first of all, has an overhead, and second of all, it prevents the JavaScript engine from compiling your code. So if you have a function that is being called a lot of times, do not put try and catch in it. If you must, try to move it to another function. For example, if we did, we could actually replace this with that. Here it wouldn't really show any difference, but if you have a lot of calculations and stuff, this would actually be beneficial. So just have try and catch in one method, and then call the other method without try and catch, and this method would be compiled. So try and catch, first of all, prevents the JavaScript engine from compiling. Now what happened here, right? This was also a worse performance than the first one. Now, what happened here is that we have this comment. Now, this comment has around 600 characters. And 600 is a magic number in the JavaScript engine compiler. Because in order to prevent the JavaScript engine from compiling huge functions that will eventually, what would be done is that the engine will just compile code and you never get to see things. So JavaScript actually, when it sees that the function is more than 600 characters, now it doesn't matter if it's a comment or code or whatever that you have in there, when it has more than 600 characters, it will not compile the code. So first of all, don't write comments. No, I'm kidding. Write comments, but when you go to production, minify your code and just remove all the comments. You don't need them in production. And second of all, keep your functions small. It's very, very important. And you can gain a lot of performance. In terms of performance, you can gain a lot of points by doing that. Look, it's almost double, so that's crazy. Okay. Did you know that this is possible? Again, that's great. Right? It does what it needs to do. But then you have this. No, not very consistent. Okay, but it's nice. Maybe if you maybe in some other languages that makes sense. This in one language and in another. But it gets even weirder because we have this, which is, I don't know, and this, which is nice because this is nice because this would give you object-object, of course, and you know plus is something that goes either way, right? 1 plus 2 and 2 plus 1 is the same thing, but not in this case. Very different. Well, do not write code like this, right? Do not do that in any form of not joking about JavaScript, but it's just too much fun not to show you this. Okay, type off and instant off. Again, two things that you use all the time in order to figure out what is the type of what you're using. And you must know a few things about them, because otherwise you would be surprised by very different bugs. So, type of one, yeah, you need to know how to type also. Type of one will be number, which is totally okay. And type of string, write something like that, that would be string, that totally okay. And type of true will be Boolean. Oh, that's a lot of sense in few samples. That's good. Now, the thing is that this will give you an object. Now, array is what? It's an object, and also this would be an object, and also this will be an object. Everything is an object, which is not good when you think that this will give you an array or something like that. So typeof works only for value types like number, string, and boolean. It doesn't work on objects like array or objects. So what do you do for that? Just instance of. So instance of array, that would actually be true. But let me show you this. So just remember that, and let's move on with this example with WTF, because you need to see how it reacts and understand it. So of course type of string will be string, right? But this instance of string won't be a string because this is not an object, okay? So what you need to do here, if you think that you want it to work, you can do something like that. Okay, instance of string, that would actually work. But never write code like this. Never do new string or new number or new boolean, because let me show you something else. Var b equals new boolean of false, right? That's just boolean having a false inside, and you can also do instance of boolean, and this will work. Now let's do if b. Of course b is false. Console.log. Let me give you a hint what's going to happen. Yes. So, so yes, B is an object now. It's not a real boolean, it's an object. And an object in JavaScript is true. Poetry, guys. Poetry. Now, we can do even another very cool thing here. So let's write a poem, okay? So, oh my, why am I a? Plus typeof, plus this, okay? Poetry, people. Poetry. We write poetries. We are poets. We're not coders. And once we understand that, we'll understand JavaScript as well. That's all we need to do. Okay. This one is nice because this one will catch you when you're not thinking about it. So let's do this, and wait, let's do this as well. I'm going to open, there's a tool here, Task Manager, right? And of course you see everything here. I can barely see it. So I hope you see it. Anyway, let's just look here, right? This is how much memory we have right now, right? 142 megabytes. Let's create a function, A. And this function will have var array of new array of 10,000 things, right? Let's do 100,000. Okay, and that's it. So now when we call it, right? So what's happening? Just look here. We have 142, 143. Yeah, it's 144. Okay, you see it's going up. At some point of time. Okay, thank you, Chrome. It would go back to 138, okay? Why? Because it was garbage collected. Why it was garbage collected? Because a new array is just a local variable, which is fine, very expected. Okay. Where are we? What the heck? What's going on? There's nothing here. Okay. Okay. Wait. Not here. Okay, thank you. No. Okay. That's not JavaScript, that's Chrome. Wait, let me do this. Run. Okay. So, yes, clear. Function, A. Var array, new array, 100,000. Now, all I'm going to do here is document.body.add event listener, right? I'm adding an event listener on the body for click. And in this function here, what I'm going to do is ARR on 10 equals whatever. Okay? This is all I do. Now, let's do this and let's hope that we still see it. Okay, so we have this thing here. Okay, 140. And this will just go up and up and up and will never go down. It might go down a little bit, but it will never go back to when it started. You know why? Because JavaScript has closure. And what happens is that this thing here that we wrote, and yes, let's do this. This thing here, this callback, catches the array in memory and does not allow it to be garbage collected. And what makes it, because we are now have an event listener that is connected to an element on the page, document.body, and you know when document.body is going to be deleted? Never. Never. Maybe when you close your Chrome, your browser, or you close your machine, or you throw it through the window. But it will never go and die. And this is just an example of closure and the problem with it, because this is now capturing this array and not letting go. And it will not be garbage collected, and this happens all the time. All the time. It's so simple to do that, and it looks nice, and it actually works. It will work forever. But you don't want that, because if this is something that happens all the time, then at some point, I don't know if you know this thing in Chrome that has this OSNAP thing. So it's because of that, because Chrome has this limitation of how many memory it can have. So because I'm going to go through the entire thing again to see if you remember. No, just kidding. So just to end, JavaScript has this really cool thing that nobody knows of, which is this. You can have an array, and you can actually compare them, okay, like this. And because 4 is bigger than 3, this is actually true and actually works. But you didn't think this would really work. That's actually okay, because they're not equals. But if you do this, this is also false. But wait a second, JavaScript will return, and look at that. This is true, and also this is true. So it's awesome, because then you can compare them just like this, and if they are larger than and equals and smaller than and equals, they're equal. So, yes. You can have questions, I think. Yeah, if you have any questions about what you saw here or on live. Yeah, everybody, let me go home. There's alcohol.
A few seconds of questions.
There is alcohol. We're standing between them and alcohol. These are the resources. Okay, this is what I saw. I showed you stuff. I guess I will tweet it, I think, these resources afterwards, so you can have them. If you have any questions, I will be in the party afterwards and drink, so you can drink a lot with me. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the first day of JFocus, and thank you very much for being here, and enjoy the party. Thank you.